We're talking all things Trump's bad cabinet picks. Okay, so for all you liberals that say Trumpism is a cult, pay attention to this episode, as I am going to criticize Donald Trump, our great cult leader, and his bad or questionable cabinet decisions. So our first one we'll get into is Dr. Oz. He is going to run the center. He is going to be the head of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid. I don't know why Trump backed him in the whatever the Senate race was a couple years ago. I don't know why Trump backed him. He is a pro-COVID lockdown individual. He said we should have copied what China did as a response to COVID. Here's him on video saying that.
The Chinese numbers have dropped dramatically, which is fantastic news. And it's also valuable for us to understand why they were able to do that. If you look inside of Wuhan province, they had a catastrophe. But outside the province, which of course they quarantined in the largest movement of its nature ever, 60 million people blocked in that space. But the rest of the country was relatively spared. They didn't have the big spikes, the huge crises that Wuhan experienced, and it took the country in a very different direction. We just have to copy what they did, take their blueprint and repeat it here in this country, and we started that aggressively over the last week.
So is it too late right now for the U.S. to adopt those policies? I mean, has it been too late in maybe adopting the lockdowns, the curfews like we're seeing in New Jersey?
I don't think it's too late. I think we did it in the nick of time. It's probably a couple days of pain that we're going to go through where we really can't influence what happens this week. In, for example, New York City, where I'm sitting now, the governor said he expects there to be 1,000 cases here. So last week we had several dozen. But I think the week from now, we'll start to see the benefits of what many would call draconian actions, shutting down all public gatherings, limiting groups to initially 500, then 250. Now we're down to 50, which is probably the right size. And people have a newfound awareness of the seriousness of this.
He is about as pro-vaccine as you can get. He even took his COVID vaccine on video.
Pulling my vaccine. I'm getting the Pfizer vaccine made by a Turkish couple. All right, sure. Here goes. Wish me luck, everybody. My COVID vaccine with Siobhan. I trust her.
Good luck.
She's a talented woman.
My arm out the way. All right, here we go. A little bit. That's it. And it's done.
That's it?
That's it.
That hurt less than a flu vaccine.
And pushed it multiple times throughout the show.
As a doctor, even I'm in awe of the incredible advances made in search of a COVID-19 vaccine. Never in the history of mankind has a vaccine been developed at this speed. But just because we're moving fast doesn't mean we're moving unsafely. We're cutting red tape, not cutting corners. I trust the science and the scientists behind these COVID-19 vaccines, and you should too. That's why I'll be in line when it's my turn to get a vaccine. As we speak, cargo planes are carrying doses of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. They're landing all around the country, like near where you live. I know what you're thinking. Why are they delivering vaccines if they're not even approved yet, right? Well, it's all part of the plan to have everything in place. So once the FDA signs off and gives the green light, we are ready to rock. If there are enough people who've been vaccinated, the virus won't be able to spread anymore. I know a lot of you are worried about getting the vaccine. I get it, I understand, because you think the science is just moving faster than ever, right? But I want to assure you, the FDA may be cutting out the red tape. They are not cutting any corners. Why should they trust the science and get the vaccine when it's their turn?
What I want people to understand is that there were absolutely no safety or scientific corners cut for this vaccine.
Joining us today is the one and only Dr. Oz.
Hello, Dr. Oz. So
Happy
good to
New
see
Year.
you. Happy New Year.
You too.
Now, as a healthcare worker, you are first in line to get vaccinated for COVID-19. So, have you gotten your vaccination yet?
I did. My whole group of surgeons went down. I got vaccinated right there. It didn't hurt at all. It wasn't even sore afterwards. I didn't get any fevers. In fact, I talked to all my colleagues. None of us really had any issues. And I'm encouraged by the fact that it works so well, 95% impact, but it doesn't seem to cause a lot of side effects. And I've had a bunch of people on my show who have been vaccinated. They were in the clinical trials, and they got a little fever after the second shot for a couple hours, but otherwise it's remarkably safe from what we can see. To date, there are no long-term side effects reported. Okay, so I've been vaccinated, right? There's a low likelihood that if I get COVID virus in my body, I'll have a problem. See, it just sort of bounces off me. What can you do after you get the COVID vaccine? I love that you shared your video of vaccination on social media. How freeing was that moment for you?
Oh, it was so freeing. And I was so grateful, just so grateful to be able to have my first and second shot. I felt that the cloud was lifting, that we could definitely see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the word you used, freeing, that is exactly how I felt.
Wendy Williams says there's no way she's getting vaccinated.
No, I don't trust it. There, I said it. I don't trust it.
Dr. Oz tries to persuade her during an appearance on his show, even showing video of his own vaccination. Dr. Oz tells Inside Edition he's concerned that Wendy's reluctance may influence millions of her fans not to get vaccinated.
I was stunned and flabbergasted when she told me that she wasn't going to get vaccinated.
One commentator called her remarks incredibly ignorant and destructive.
He is a coward and doesn't want to interfere in women murdering their child through abortion. He said this on The Breakfast Club.
School in Philadelphia, and I saw women who'd had coat hanger events. I mean, they're really traumatic events that happened when they were younger, before Roe versus Wade, and many of them were harmed for life, emotionally discarding anyway.
Right.
And listen, I'm at a personal level, I wouldn't want anyone in my family to have an abortion. I told my kids this. I mean, I love the lives that they're creating so much that I personally wouldn't want it, but I don't want to interfere with everyone else's stuff because it's hard enough to get into life as it is. What I do know as a physician is if you're going to make it if the litmus test is the heart's beating, then really make it the heart beating. Mm-hmm. Don't make some surrogate version of it when cells are having electrical path. That's not what the average person thinks. Right. The average person is envisaging a little acorn heart beating in there. That's not what's going on. What it is. That's 6 weeks. And I think the rule that most Americans seem to support is if the child was viable outside the womb, then you don't want to kill that child. Mm-hmm. If the child was not going to be able to survive.
He is also pro-red flag laws, as he implied that it should be implemented in all 50 states on his show.
Because the issue of being anonymous is, for me, vital. If someone's already dangerous, a coworker, you don't want to make yourself a target by telling everybody, hey, I think you're dangerous, right? So how many of you would be more comfortable if it was anonymous? Yeah. So I think part of the hope I gather is that we'll make a system so that I can call in and say, there's evidence besides my testimony that this person's dangerous. Look at their Facebook feed or social media postings or comments they've made to other coworkers besides me. Do a little investigating. I'm alerting you, putting a little red flag up there saying this person's a concern. Then I would hope that all the states would say, well, if there's obvious evidence and you're pointing us to it, you don't have to get involved personally. Is that what's going to eventually happen, hopefully, in most states?
So that is something that you can do. And again, it's going to depend.
He is friends with both Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama, and has had both of those individuals on his show multiple times. He has pushed transgender mental illness on his show multiple times.
Your son told you he was meant to be a she.
She always knew that she is a girl.
Would you let your child become the opposite sex?
Talk to me about why you decided to have a double mastectomy at age 14.
Inside the lives of transgender kids.
This show is going to be controversial for a lot of people, challenging your beliefs about what it means to be male or female. It describes people whose sex on the outside doesn't match who they are on the inside.
I'm a girl, and I have a penis.
8-year-old Josie was born Joseph. Physically, she's a boy. But from the time she could talk, Josie knew she was a girl. Her sex on the outside didn't match how she felt on the inside. And that's how every transgender child feels. Children like Josie may start showing signs of transgender as early as 2 or 3. Does gender come from our anatomy or from our thoughts and feelings?
The pediatrician was looking at her. He got really quiet and just sort of watched her for a while. And he brought up a term, gender identity disorder. Excuse me, what's that? He said, you know, like transgender. Like, how did it make you feel when I used to take you and get your hair cut off at the barbershop on base?
It made me very angry.
You did not like your haircut. Why not?
Because I'm a girl, not a boy.
Yeah.
He believes in systemic racism. He even released a video after the George Floyd protests on his Twitter. He supports health insurance mandates. This according to CNN Politics. He praised Dr. Anthony Fauci and pushed the drug remdesivir on his show.
Our nation's top infectious disease doctor, Anthony Fauci, just shared breaking news on the first high-powered successful randomized trial comparing a placebo to a COVID-19 fighting drug. Remdesivir, originally created for prior coronaviruses and Ebola, was successful in a trial over 1,090 patients. The primary endpoint was time to recovery or discharge from the hospital. And it was 11 days with the drug and 15 days for the folks who did not get the medication. That's a 31% improvement. That's highly significant, which means there's only 1 in 1,000 chance that it was just lucky. The mortality rate trended towards improvement as well. It was 8% with the drug versus 11% without. But you can't say that was statistically significant. The trial was actually stopped early since there's an ethical obligation to allow the placebo group to get access to this treatment. Now, although promising, there was another trial published in The Lancet today as well. It did not show benefits in either the presence of the virus in patients or their overall condition. So we need to understand if remdesivir works better in some settings or stages of disease than others. If confirmed, we might have our first proven building block to building a protective wall against COVID-19 virus.
And I think the thing that puts the icing on top of the cake, so we've got, he's pro-COVID lockdowns. He's pro-vaccine. He's pro-choice. He's pro-red flag laws. He's friends with Oprah and Obama. He's pro-transgenderism. He supports systemic racism. He supports health insurance mandates, thinks Fauci was a great individual. Now, to wrap things all up, he has pushed microchipping on his show.
The latest breakthroughs. Turns out one of the biggest discoveries is actually this tiny. See how small that is? This little chip may be the next big thing, and it sounds like it's right from a sci-fi movie, but people all over the world are implanting these into their wrists. So I asked my producer, Dean, to find out more about this cutting-edge technology and what it could mean for your health.
Whether it's our smartphones, our watches, our fitness trackers, or our Bluetooth headphones, it's clear that technology is not just part of our lives, it's running them. It's how we buy things, watch things, how we date, stay safe, even how we travel. Paul? Cool. We're so attracted to our devices that they're basically becoming a part of our bodies. But what if they really could become a part of our bodies? Well, guess what? They can. Meet the RFID microchip. This tiny chip, which can be implanted into your wrist, yes, I did say wrist, uses short-range radio frequency identification, similar to the tech used to track your pets or your phone. Once implanted in your body, it could identify you as you pass through the airport, open the door to your home. It could even be used to buy groceries at the supermarket. Now, your driver's license, passport, keys, and wallet are all inside your body, contained in something the size of a grain of rice. I know it might sound like sci-fi, but it's not. 10,000 people have already been chipped, and the number is growing. The possibilities are limitless, especially when it comes to your health. Imagine you're rushed to the hospital without any identification. But with just one scan of your chip, doctors know your name, date of birth, medical history, insurance, blood type, allergies, even the medication you're taking. This chip in your wrist won't just change your life, one day it might just save it. And that's why this little RFID microchip is the next big thing.
So, just so you don't think that this is an isolated individual, that was all about Dr. Oz, the horrible Senate candidate that ran for Pennsylvania State Senate and now will be heading up the Trump administration for Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Not really a trustworthy individual there, so we will have to keep an eye on him. Next up, Scott Bissett. He is going to be the Treasury Secretary under Trump administration. So first and foremost, this guy worked for George Soros as George Soros's right-hand man for decades. This according to Wikipedia. And I think that goes without saying, don't trust anything around George Soros. All right, the third individual we're going to criticize here is Trump's pick for Surgeon General, Dr. Janette Neshiwat. The first bullet point I have on her is she is pro-censorship. She commends Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for silencing people that are against the COVID vaccination. To quote her, she hopes and prays other social media companies do the same.
First of all, vaccines save lives, and I am so excited, and I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action, because this affects everyone. This affects our children. It affects adults. I mean, just look at the recent measles outbreak, the biggest outbreak that we've had in decades with measles, and that's no joke. Measles can cause brain inflammation and pneumonia and ear infections and hearing loss and death, so it's about time that they are taking action, and I hope and pray that other social media platforms will follow suit and do the same thing.
She is another pro-vaccine, pro-mask, pro-lockdown, pro-social distancing. Here is about 6 minutes of her talking about COVID, including tweets of her stances about pro-masking.
Well, let's take a look at what we're dealing with right now, Alicia. We are dealing with a severe outbreak with Delta. It's spreading like wildfire, and it's putting our children in the hospital in record numbers. The coronavirus, this Delta strain, is affecting the younger population. We see more hospitalizations with those under the age of 50 and our children, and we now are running out of ICU beds. If you look at Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, we are running out of hospital beds. We are running out of ICU beds. The healthcare system is strained. So when we are dealing with these types of situations, we need to take action. And that starts with protecting everyone, because everyone is capable of spreading this virus from one person to another. And remember what happens when the virus spreads, it replicates, and then it has the opportunity to mutate. And that's when we see these stronger variants like Delta that are harder to control.
Now, COVID, this new Delta variant hits right before school starts, and our top priority should be getting kids back into the classroom, but doing so safely. Here's the problem. Delta is different, and that's why the American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending that if you're going to be in a classroom, in a crowded classroom, then you want to protect yourself, wear a mask. Because a lot of kids, for example, under the age of 12, they can't be vaccinated. So it's important to point out, though, masking is not the only solution. We also need to make sure that we have good ventilation, that people are washing their hands, that they're getting tested, and that all the teachers are getting vaccinated as well. But what's happening is this new Delta variant, it replicates more easily, and it's more contagious. You can have up to 1,000 times more viral particles, so kids can pick it up. Even though they may not have severe symptoms, they can spread it to another person. And when it spreads is when the virus mutates, and that's when we get more variants like Delta and Lambda and the UK variant.
The CDC has updated its guidelines. If you've been exposed to someone who tested positive for coronavirus and you are symptom-free after 10 days, then you are cleared to go back to work. If you are symptom-free for 7 days with a negative COVID test, then you are also free to go back to work. But the baseline remains that you should still monitor your symptoms, wear your mask, and practice social distancing.
Yesterday, the CDC put out guidelines. If you are fully vaccinated, then it is safe to go outside, to go hiking, biking, to enjoy outdoor dining, to be around other people who are unvaccinated without a mask. Now, that is if you are fully vaccinated. If you are not vaccinated, you still have to take precautions around other people. Now, both vaccinated and unvaccinated groups have to still wear a mask in large public areas where it's crowded, like concerts and stadiums. And then when it comes to children, we've got a lot of data that tells us children under the age of 10 are low risk for carriers or for transmission of COVID. So we really need to keep that in mind, especially with the summer coming up, with summer camps. CDC is still recommending that the young ones wear their masks when they are around others, to stay in cohorts with camping. And the only times that they can remove their mask is if they're sleeping, if they're swimming, if they're eating, and they still have to maintain that social distancing as well. And I think part of that reasoning is because of the crowded areas with the campgrounds, and also kids can't yet be vaccinated. So right now it's 16 and older that we can vaccinate with Pfizer, for example, but we're still undergoing trials for the younger children to be vaccinated with Moderna, with Pfizer. So we're still waiting on that. Yeah, I think it's important to encourage and emphasize the benefits of being vaccinated. Number one, it can keep you out of the hospital. It can prevent you from dying. Not only are you protecting yourself, but you're protecting others in the community. And when you become vaccinated, we can open up. We can go to concerts. We can go to restaurants. We don't have to worry about social distancing and masking if we all can do our part. So ultimately, if we're at about 30% of Americans being fully vaccinated right now, if we can get that number up to 70 to 85% per the CDC recommendations, then we can resume a normal lifestyle, and it's going to be worth it to me. Yeah, I think it's important because, again, only a third of Americans are fully vaccinated with these very safe and effective vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer, but we do have to get that number up higher before we can resume normal activity. I think that's very important. And it's also important that if you start your first dose, you get your second dose, because there's many who are not making the appointments for their second doses, and you will not get that 94-95% safety and efficacy if you don't get both doses. That's critical. And wearing a mask isn't just to protect yourself. You're actually helping to protect others who may not be vaccinated yet, who may be more vulnerable. So you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your community and overall health of America.
Delta is different. Right now, kids make up a third of the cases. Last month, we've had thousands of children who are hospitalized. So even though your child may not lose their life from COVID, who wants to see their child child hospitalized? Who wants to see their child suffer from long hauler syndrome from COVID or multi-system inflammatory disease from COVID? So this is something that we need to take into consideration, but it all comes down to risk versus benefit. What are the benefits of a child between the ages of 5 and 11 being vaccinated? Is it going to reduce spread? Is it going to reduce infection? Is it going to reduce hospitalization in children? Is it going to prevent them from having to quarantine? This is all important information, important facts that we need to take a closer look at. We need to see the data out of Pfizer, not just a press release. Hopefully, the children will have safe and effective outcomes from this vaccine, and the benefits will outweigh any potential risk or side effects.
And another one that's a bootlicker of Dr. Anthony Fauci, as she said that she has so much respect for Anthony Fauci.
I have so much respect for Dr. Fauci. His number one priority are patients, not politics. And that I actually watched his full interview yesterday. That network, they twisted his words. He didn't absolutely say, yes, we should have done this. He said, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Of course, in any situation, if you start from negative timing back in November, it would have been a better outcome. He was generalizing his statement, but they twisted his words. I think what he's doing is doing everything in his power to protect Americans. That's what we need.
But to a separate issue, she has pushed fear-mongering about back alley abortions, taking a page right out of the Democratic playbook when discussing abortion.
A law that might be passed, bill that might be passed. But as a doctor, I'm concerned for safety. I'm concerned, are we going to see an uprise in back alley abortions? Am I going to see young teenagers trying to involuntarily hurt themselves by trying to self-abort their fetuses out of fear and not knowing what to do and not having alternatives?
Let's get into her background a little bit. She is sisters with Julia Neshiwat. Now, if we look in a little bit into Julia's background, Julia served on Bush, Obama, and Biden administrations and had roles in those administrations. Julia has also served on the Governing Advisory Council for Clean Energy. What is that a part of? That is a part of the World Economic Forum, the WEF. Carl Schwab, and you will own nothing and you will be happy. Yes, that group. So anything with the WEF cannot obviously be trusted. So that was her sister. So we have a World Economic Forum member's sister has now infiltrated the Trump administration. Scott Bissett, a George Soros individual, has infiltrated the Trump administration. And then, of course, elite Hollywood liberal Oz has infiltrated the Trump administration. Now, the fourth and final individual that I have some notes on is Julia's husband or fiancé, Mike Waltz, Trump's pick for National Security Advisor. In 2021, Julia, the World Economic Forum girl, married Mike. So, for you to be marrying a World Economic Forum member, that right there is enough for me not to trust you. But to make things even better, Mike Waltz advised war hawk Dick Cheney on counterterrorism under his administration. So we got Mike Waltz, who married a World Economic Forum employee and also advised war hawk, neocon, Dick Cheney. As opposed, and then we got her sister, Julia, who is the Surgeon General, Scott Bissett, Soros plant at Treasury Secretary, and Dr. Oz, a Hollywood elite liberal. So those are some questionable, bad picks by Trump and his team. I don't know what they were thinking with any of these individuals, but we will give them the chance. I'm not expecting much from those four, but we will see. We've got 20 days until Donald Trump is inaugurated. 20 days until we take back our country from Joe Biden. God bless. Have a good day. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and follow my other accounts. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, TikTok, Rumble, Telegram, and Truth Social. Thank you. God bless. Have a nice day.